Hi, I'm Paul Kay, one of Eva Behar's grandchildren. I'll be reading from her book, My Story, about her life before, during, and after the Shoah. Yom HaShoah is an emotional and important day, and also a very useful day. Useful in that it's an opportunity for us as Jewish people to remind ourselves of our responsibility to each other, to look after each other, and our responsibility to the wider world to ensure that something like the Shoah never happens again. Belsen. I arrived on the 1st of January 1945. In the train, it was so cold, there was snow all the way. Winter in Germany was bitterly cold. I took my shoes off and rubbed my feet because they were absolutely frozen. We didn't have any tights or socks or anything. I was rubbing my feet when suddenly the train stopped, the doors opened, and there were German soldiers shouting, "Raus, raus!" I was looking for my shoes and I could find only one. There was no way I could look for the other shoe, so I left without any shoes, and now I was barefooted on snow and ice. We marched for 7 kilometers to Belsen. Along the way, there was a bridge above us, and the Germans were all lined up on top of the bridge, laughing and pointing at us and using vile words. We started to march and march, and then we arrived into what we then knew to be Belsen. My memory of Belsen is a haze, a terrible haze. The horror that confronted us was absolutely unbelievable. There were bodies strewn all over the place. There were people walking about half dead. I can't convey to you the horror of this place. The untidiness, the dirt, the calamity was unbelievable because whatever Auschwitz was, it was orderly and clean. This was far from that. We were shown into the barracks with 3 levels of single bunks on top of each other. I was in the bottom bunk. The difference between here and Auschwitz was that at Auschwitz, we used to get some sort of food morning, noon, and night. Here, there was practically nothing at all to eat. We stood at roll call as per usual, morning and night, and we soon realized that there was something very wrong. People were so ill, they were dying all around us. Within a few weeks, I contracted what I now know was typhus. The blockhand at the time was a Slovak girl who was very fond of me, and she didn't give up on me. At roll call, they held my dress because I couldn't stand up while Germans counted us. This girl wouldn't give up on me. If she had, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I was very ill, lying on that bunk with fleas all around, half an inch big, transparent and yellow, not like normal fleas. I was picking fleas out of my hair. As I took them out, my hair was coming out too. My strength was zero, and there was no food. There was no order. There was no cleanliness. I lay on my bunk, and I could hear the people on the top bunk saying, "She's the next one on the heap." The heap in the yard was growing and growing. When somebody died, they just threw them on the top. I remember I didn't have the strength to answer them, but in my head, I screamed, "No, God will never let me die here." I remember trying to be human, trying to go to the toilet. Because the work commandos had stopped, the holes had filled up and overflowed onto the floor. I don't know if I could convey to a civilized mind what went on in the barrack. People half dying, and that smell, that terrible smell, muck and dirt everywhere. I don't know how, but I started to recover. The disorder in that camp and the heat that had been there when we arrived in January was nothing compared to what it was now in March. It was colossal. We were so hungry. I don't remember eating in the last 3 or 4 weeks before liberation. I don't remember putting a morsel in my mouth. The hunger was indescribable. As the British army approached, so the Germans were disappearing. But I remember this one German. I can see him now as he came in and wanted a few girls to clear up the mess outside. This Ukrainian girl jumped down from the top bunk. She put her hands on her hips and said, "Today, you are asking me to work for you. Tomorrow, I will be asking you to work for me. But today, I will not work for you. We were holding our breaths because he had a gun. We thought he was going to shoot her, but he didn't. He just turned around and walked out, and she burst out laughing. She had such guts. Liberation. I was reasonably better, whatever that means, but barely able to stand on my feet. Food was non-existent, and we were scrummaging all over the place trying to find something to eat, but there was nothing. Days went on, and then the people said that British forces were coming and that the war was nearly finished, but nobody believed it. I remember someone helping me up, propping me up against the wooden wall of the barrack. I watched Grace and Kramer in a British vehicle, a jeep, saying, "Your day has come, you are liberated, you are free people." Both Kramer and Grace were hung on the 13th of December, 1945. We were liberated on the 15th of April, 1945. I was half dead, half alive, and I stood there, but I couldn't take it in. Somebody asked me if I felt joy, but I didn't feel anything. I was incapable of feeling any emotion or joy or sadness or anything at all. The British made the Germans dig graves, which still exist in Belsen today. I've seen them on my return. Huge graves of 10,000 people, 3,000 people, 5,000 people, heaps of skeletons, skin on bone, no flesh on any of the dead. There was no flesh on any of us. The British did not know what to do. Look after the dead, look after the half-dead, or look after the living. We were taken to a barrack that was made into a type of medical unit where I was disinfected and washed with hoses and given clean clothes. I cannot tell you how wonderful the British were, but I can tell you that the love and warmth I had for them has never been forgotten in the 75 years I've been in this country. Unfortunately, the British soldiers who liberated us did not realize what they were confronted with. They left a food warehouse open, and those poor people who were on their feet were able to go there and eat whatever they could find. Many of them died. They stuffed themselves with food, and their stomachs couldn't take it. And we lost a lot of people. They were liberated, and then they were gone. I was too ill still, so I was taken to this hospital, deloused, and gradually I started to eat. I can't tell you anymore. I was just too ill, and I don't remember if anyone from my bunk survived. The British had learned their lesson with the warehouse, and we were fed very gently. I was getting on my feet and getting better. We were getting parcels from the Jewish Relief Unit and all sorts of little bits of niceness. I didn't go back to Germany until the 70th anniversary, on the 15th of April 2015, when I decided to return to Belsen. I've not been back to Auschwitz. That would have killed me altogether. Returning to Belsen finished me off for a couple of months, but Auschwitz, I just couldn't. I think it would have been very bad for me. I think all the sleepless nights would have come back. My children and grandchildren came with me. What can I tell you about it? I didn't know that I would be able to tread the earth, but I did. I got to the entrance of the camp, and I couldn't see anything other than the memories of my barrack and the bodies. The kids were holding me, and all of a sudden I could see green in Belsen. The ground was green, the graves were green, everything was green with grass. I literally came to, and I could see these huge mounds covered in grass. You couldn't imagine how desolate it had been before. There was a central memorial where we all stood for an international service for the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Belsen. Chief Rabbi Mervis was there. I went up to one of the mass graves to light a candle. I said a prayer and remembered all the people in my barrack and the people that died and never survived. I came out, and they didn't. As I came away from this grave, a German girl with a whole lot of microphones approached me and asked if I would say a few words. I don't remember what I said, but whatever it was, this girl took it the wrong way. She left in tears I was obviously upset. I was saying, you have to forget and forgive, but you can't forgive in the name of the dead. Later on, I explained to her that she took it the wrong way. I wanted to say that you can't go on hating people who were or were not guilty. Gets you nowhere.